When my husband ended our marriage like a boardroom meeting, I realized something terrifying. They thought I had nothing left to lose. The room was silent, but it was the kind of silence that presses on your chest, making your lungs tighten. Everyone's eyes were fixed on me, waiting for me to crumble, to beg, to plead. He didn't even glance my way as he said it, his words sharp and rehearsed. "We have decided that you do not meet my thinking, so our relationship is over." The word "we" echoed like a verdict. Not I. Not you. We. The collective had spoken. My mother-in-law's satisfied smirk, my father-in-law's stiff nod, my sister-in-law's averted gaze, all perfectly orchestrated. The humiliation wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. It was surgical, deliberate, a performance meant to erase me in plain sight. I paused, taking in every detail. The polished table, the heavy curtains, the faint scent of lilies that always reminded me of fake smiles. And then I smiled. Not a triumphant smile, a quiet, controlled acknowledgement of what they didn't understand. "Thank you for the collective decision," I said, calm, steady. My voice carried, and for the first time the room faltered. Their expectations shattered. They had assumed tears, pleading, chaos. Instead, I gave stillness. I stood, straightened my dress, and walked out. Every step was deliberate, echoing in the hall. Whispers began immediately, low but urgent. Their panic was palpable. Questions rose in hurried tones. Who would handle the house? The accounts? Plans they had assumed I would silently manage? The threads they thought were mine to pull had slipped from their fingers, and they didn't know how to react. Outside, the cold air hit my face. I inhaled deeply. 4 years, I had been the invisible backbone of their lives, smoothing conflicts, balancing ledgers, carrying burdens no one acknowledged. They had thought me disposable, replaceable, a background figure whose absence wouldn't matter. Now I saw the truth. They hadn't discarded me because I was weak. They discarded me because they underestimated me. Their overconfidence had given me clarity, patience, and, most importantly, freedom. As I walked into the quiet street, I realized power didn't have to roar to be felt. It could be silent, patient, invisible until it was undeniable. The panic I left behind was the first crack in their illusion of control. And soon, very soon, I would show them just how much strength they had misjudged, not with anger but with quiet, unshakable certainty. For the first time, I wasn't just leaving a marriage. I was stepping into the life I had been denied, armed with clarity, patience, and a resolve they would never anticipate. They ended my marriage in one sentence, but they had no idea how much power they had just handed back to me. The moment I stepped outside that suffocating room, the weight of years of invisibility lifted, replaced by a sharp clarity. For so long, I had been background noise, the silent hand keeping their polished lives together. I managed their schedules, smoothed over conflicts, handled finances, and carried emotional burdens that no one ever acknowledged. They thought I did all this because I had to. In truth, I did it because I knew it gave me an edge they would never see coming. As I walked away, I replayed the countless small moments where I had been dismissed politely. "Let the elders decide, you wouldn't understand. This is family thinking." They assumed my silence meant compliance. But my silence was observation. My invisibility was strategy. Every document I filed, every problem I solved, every hidden note I made about their careless decisions had been quietly documented in my mind, and now it had a purpose. Messages started pouring in almost immediately. Missed calls, confused texts, frantic attempts at clarification. They had never expected me to leave without a fight, without explanation. They had counted on me being dependent, pliable, weak. And yet, here I was, calm, composed, untouchable. The very structure they relied on began to tremble under my absence. I remembered nights spent covering for their mistakes, mornings spent smoothing tensions they had caused, and years spent sacrificing recognition to maintain harmony. None of it mattered to them until it wasn't there anymore. The panic I sensed wasn't fear of losing me emotionally. It was fear of losing the stability I had been providing quietly, the invisible power they had taken for granted. For the first time, I felt the intoxicating clarity of independence. There was no bitterness, only understanding. They had thought erasing me would make them stronger. In reality, it had exposed how fragile their world truly was. Every call they made, every awkward question, every hesitant text was proof that their confidence had been built on my invisibility. And in that quiet, I allowed myself a private smile. I didn't need to confront them. I didn't need to prove my worth. Their panic was enough. I could watch from afar as their carefully constructed lives faltered, slowly, inevitably, without me there to hold it together. The lesson was clear: power was never loud. It had always been quiet, deliberate, and strategic. They had misjudged me, underestimated me, and in doing so, given me the one thing they could never take: the knowledge that I was stronger than they had ever imagined. I didn't need revenge yet. I just needed to wait, to prepare, and to move forward with clarity. The seeds of change were already planted, and soon the world they thought they controlled would reveal the truth, that the woman they discarded was the one they should have never underestimated. I didn't go back to prove anything. I let their world reveal the truth without me. After the silence of their collective decision, I realized that absence could speak louder than confrontation. I withdrew completely, vanishing from their schedules, their calls, their carefully orchestrated expectations. And as I did, I began to see how dependent they truly were on the quiet work I had always done. From a distance, I watched the cracks form. Legal documents were misplaced, decisions delayed, plans fell apart. The small errors I had always quietly fixed were suddenly magnified into chaos. My husband reached out, carefully, cautiously, not with apologies, not with explanations, but with uncertainty, trying to feel the boundaries of what he had lost. The collective confidence he once projected had vanished. Every interaction became a lesson for me. Their arrogance had blinded them, and now the consequences unfolded naturally, without a single word from me. I relished neither schadenfreude nor revenge. My satisfaction was quiet and calm, seeing them struggle in the systems they had assumed I would always manage. The family's perfectly polished image began to wobble, and I witnessed it like a sculptor observing a clay figure crack under its own weight. Emotionally, I processed more than just the betrayal. I grieved the years I had been invisible, the moments my contributions went unacknowledged, the times I shrank myself to make them feel comfortable. But grief soon gave way to clarity. Strength doesn't scream, it waits. It observes. It prepares. And mine was ready. Messages came in, hesitant and awkward. My absence spoke louder than any argument could. They were realizing finally that power isn't inherited from titles, nor is control guaranteed by relationships. It resides in those who quietly hold everything together, who understand every detail, who know what the world looks like behind the curtains. They had always underestimated me, assumed my silence was weakness, my patience was submission. How wrong they were. And yet, I felt no bitterness. Only calm, deliberate understanding. Their panic, their confusion, the cracks in their controlled lives, all of it confirmed what I had always known. I had been undervalued, yes, but never powerless. Power had always been mine, they just didn't see it. I didn't need to confront them. I didn't need to yell or storm back. Their world was showing its fragility without me, and that was more than enough. I had walked away, but I had taken the most important thing with me: clarity, patience, and the knowledge that my life, my decisions, and my value were mine alone. Soon they would understand. Not through confrontation. Not through revenge. But through the undeniable truth that the woman they discarded, the one they assumed would silently vanish, was the very foundation they had relied on, and without me that foundation was crumbling. They thought ending the relationship would break me, but it freed me. The moment their collective verdict fell, I felt a strange calm settle over me. No tears, no pleading, no chaos, just clarity. I had spent years shrinking myself to fit their expectations, absorbing their criticism, managing their chaos, and smoothing over conflicts that were never mine. Now that weight had lifted and I could finally breathe. I walked into the quiet street, letting the evening air brush against my face, feeling each breath for the first time in years. Every step away from that house, from their judgment, from their collective arrogance, was a reclamation of self. I wasn't leaving to punish them. I wasn't leaving to prove anything. I was leaving to reclaim everything that had been quietly denied to me: dignity, control, and peace. The days that followed were deliberate. I rebuilt my life slowly, carefully, with intention. Every decision was mine alone: the financial choices, the social interactions, the spaces I allowed into my life. I relished the freedom of making no one else's priorities my own, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of my own power. It wasn't loud or showy. It was steady, unshakable, undeniable. Occasionally, I would hear about them. A message from a confused relative, a hesitant question from my husband, whispers that carried over social gatherings. Each snippet confirmed what I already knew: their world, the one they had tried to control, was trembling without me. And they didn't understand why. They still thought power was taken through anger or confrontation. They hadn't realized it had always been in quiet patience, in observation, and in the ability to walk away without losing oneself. I didn't seek revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't need to humiliate them or display their failures. Life had a way of revealing truth, and now their truth was unfolding naturally. Every small misstep, every overlooked detail, every hesitation in their plans reminded them that I had been the anchor they ignored. And in that quiet I found joy, not in their failure but in my freedom. I had been underestimated, dismissed, and discarded, but none of it had diminished me. It had only revealed what I had always known: strength is silent, dignity is unshakable, and peace is the most powerful statement of all. For the first time in my life, I wasn't reacting. I was living. Every choice, every step, every breath belonged to me alone. And as I moved forward, I felt a quiet smile spread across my face. They had thought they were taking everything from me, but in reality they had freed me to take it all back, not from them but for myself. The woman they discarded was no longer invisible. She was present, unshakable and unstoppable. And that realization, that quiet, profound power, was the only closure I would ever need.